The ceremonial chamber reeked of incense and old stone, but Nicole could only smell her own fear as the 7 elders formed a half-circle around her trembling form. The eldest, a woman whose face resembled carved granite, held forth a silver chalice that caught the firelight in sickening flashes. "Drink!" Elder Morwen commanded, her voice echoing off the cavern walls. "Your sister's essence must not be wasted. The bloodline right demands it." Nicole's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the cup as it was thrust toward her. Inside, the liquid gleamed dark and viscous, still warm. Her stomach turned over. Her twin sister Delilah had been dead less than 3 hours, her body growing cold in the burial chamber 1 floor below. And now these ancient wolves expected Nicole to consume what remained of her blood. "I can't," Nicole whispered, her voice cracking. "Please, I can't do this." "You have no choice." Elder Morwen's eyes held no sympathy, no warmth, nothing but cold calculation. Delilah carried the ancient line within her veins. She was meant to be our next high wolf, our bridge to the old power. Her death does not absolve our pack of its duty to the bloodline. You are her identical twin. Her blood will recognize yours. You will carry what she carried. The other elders murmured their agreement, a sound like dead leaves scraping across stone. Nicole had always been the weaker twin, the one born second, the one whose wolf had manifested smaller and less impressive. Delilah had been radiant, powerful, destined for greatness. Nicole had been the shadow, content to let her sister shine. Now Delilah was gone, killed in what the elders called a tragic accident during a border patrol, though Nicole had seen the claw marks on her sister's throat and knew murder when she saw it. "Drink or be cast out." Elder Thaddeus spoke now, his grizzled face stern. "Those are your only choices. We need the ancient line preserved. If you refuse, you are useless to this pack." Cast out meant death. A lone wolf survived perhaps days in the wilderness beyond pack territory, hunted by rogues and rival packs. Nicole had no combat training, no survival skills. She would die screaming within a week. Her fingers closed around the chalice. It felt impossibly heavy. "That's right," Morwen said softly, something almost predatory entering her expression. "Accept your sister's gift." Nicole raised the cup to her lips. The liquid touched her tongue, metallic and bitter and somehow alive. She wanted to vomit, wanted to throw the chalice across the room and run, but 7 pairs of eyes watched her with absolute focus. She swallowed. Once, twice, 3 times until the cup was empty and her throat burned with the violation of what she'd done. For a moment, nothing happened. Relief started to flood through her. Maybe the ritual was just symbolic. Maybe the elders' belief in ancient magic was just superstition dressed up as tradition. Then the pain hit. It started in her chest, a searing heat that spread outward like wildfire through her veins. Nicole's back arched as she fell to her knees, the silver chalice clattering away across stone. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Inside her mind, her wolf howled in terror, and something answered. Something else. Something that had been Delilah's. Nicole felt it enter her consciousness like a second heartbeat layering over the first. Her wolf recoiled, snarling, trying to reject this foreign presence, but it was too late. The blood had already begun its work. She could feel herself being rewritten from the inside out, cells dividing and multiplying and transforming. Her wolf wasn't disappearing, but it wasn't alone anymore. Another consciousness pressed against hers, familiar and strange all at once. Delilah's wolf. still alive somehow, preserved in blood, now fusing with Nicole's own. The elders were speaking, but their voices sounded like they were coming from underwater. Nicole's vision blurred, doubled, tripled. She could see the chamber from her own eyes and from somewhere else, some other perspective that showed her the truth beneath appearances. Elder Morwen's face flickered, and for just an instant Nicole saw something ancient and hungry wearing the old woman's skin. Elder Thaddeus stood perfectly still, but in that doubled vision Nicole saw his hand resting on a knife hidden in his robes. They had planned this. They had known what would happen. The realization came with crystalline clarity, even as her body continued to transform. Delilah hadn't died in an accident. She'd been killed because she'd discovered something, learned something about the elders that they couldn't allow to survive. And now, they'd tricked Nicole into accepting her sister's power because they needed the ancient line, but they thought Nicole was weak enough to control. They thought wrong. The pain reached its crescendo, and Nicole heard herself scream, a sound that echoed off stone and sent small rocks tumbling from the ceiling. Power erupted from her body in a shockwave that knocked 3 of the elders backward. When Nicole opened her eyes, the world had changed. Colors were sharper, sounds came from miles away, and inside her mind, 2 wolves circled each other, snarling and snapping before something clicked into place and they moved as one. She had 2 wolves now, 2 separate consciousnesses that somehow shared a single purpose. The realization left her breathless. Elder Morwen's expression had shifted from confidence to something that might have been concern. "The fusion was successful," she said, studying Nicole with new intensity. "Stand, child. Let us see what you've become." Nicole pushed herself upright on shaking legs. She felt different, stronger. Her senses extended farther than they ever had before, picking up heartbeats and breathing patterns and the subtle chemical signatures of emotion. She could smell the elders' surprise, their calculation, and underneath it all, their fear. They were afraid of her. "Very good," Morwen said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "You will need time to adjust, of course. We'll confine you to the lower chambers until—" "No!" The word came out with more force than Nicole intended. Both wolves inside her agreed on this point with absolute certainty. "I won't be confined." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Elder Thaddeus moved his hand fractionally closer to his hidden knife. "You forget yourself, girl. The ritual may have given you power, but we are still your elders. You will obey." Nicole met his eyes and saw him flinch. Through her doubled vision, she saw his true face, saw the guilt written there. He had been one of the ones who killed Delilah. The knowledge settled into her bones with absolute certainty. "I need air," she said quietly, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I need to think." "You'll stay here until we've determined you're stable," Morwen insisted. "The fusion of 2 wolves in one body has never been attempted before. You could be dangerous." The irony wasn't lost on Nicole. They were worried she might be dangerous when they'd just forced her to commit an act of blood magic that should have been impossible. When they'd murdered her sister and thought they could control the aftermath. "I'm leaving," Nicole said, taking a step toward the door. "You can try to stop me if you want." For a moment, she thought they would. Thaddeus's fingers actually closed on his knife hilt. But Morwen raised a hand, staying him. "Let her go," the old woman said softly. "But Nicole, remember that you owe this pack everything. Your sister died in service to our people. Honor her memory by doing the same." The threat was clear: serve or suffer the same fate as Delilah. Nicole walked out of that chamber on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else, past stone archways and down spiral stairs until she emerged into the cool night air. The pack's central compound spread before her, dozens of buildings arranged around a central gathering space. In the distance, she could see the lights of the pack house where the Alpha lived with his inner circle. Alpha Joseph. The youngest Alpha their pack had seen in 3 generations, powerful and brilliant and completely untouchable as far as Nicole was concerned. He'd barely spoken 2 words to her in her entire life. Why would he? She'd been nobody, nothing special, just the weaker twin living in her sister's shadow. But Delilah had known him, had worked directly with him as part of the High Wolf training program, had trusted him. Nicole's feet carried her forward before she consciously decided where she was going. The doubled vision came and went in waves, showing her glimpses of things she shouldn't be able to see. Pack members in their homes, their auras revealing their emotional states. A group of warriors training in a clearing, their movements predictable and slow compared to how she could move now. And there, in the pack house, a figure standing at a window looking out over the compound. Joseph. Even from this distance, even with her newly strange sight, she recognized the breadth of his shoulders, the way he held himself like he was carrying the weight of the entire pack on his back. Which, to be fair, he was. Delilah had trusted him. The thought came from somewhere deep in Nicole's merged consciousness, carrying the weight of her sister's memories. Delilah had discovered something about the elders, and she'd been planning to tell Joseph. But she'd been killed before she could. Nicole needed to reach him, needed to warn him. The elders were planning something, and whatever it was, it involved the ancient line and probably involved removing anyone who stood in their way. If Joseph was a threat to their plans, he was in danger. She was halfway across the compound when the first wave of dizziness hit. Nicole stumbled, catching herself against a building wall. Inside her mind, the 2 wolves were fighting again, each trying to assert dominance. Pain lanced through her skull as her body tried to cope with hosting 2 separate wolf spirits. This was what the elders had been worried about. This was why they wanted her confined until she was stable. Stable meant broken, meant controllable. Nicole gritted her teeth and pushed forward. She made it another 20 yards before the second wave hit, worse than the first. This time, her legs gave out entirely, and she collapsed onto the packed earth of the compound. Several pack members were staring now, concern and curiosity mixing on their faces. Nicole tried to push herself up, but her arms wouldn't cooperate. The wolves in her mind were tearing at each other, and the pain was radiating outward, making her vision swim and her breath come in short gasps. Strong hands gripped her shoulders, lifting her with surprising gentleness. Nicole's doubled vision flickered, and she saw 2 versions of the same face looking down at her. One was the surface appearance, a handsome man with dark eyes and an expression of concern. The other was deeper, truer, showing her someone carrying immense pain and responsibility, someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks, someone who was grieving. Nicole? Joseph's voice cut through the pain like a lifeline. What happened? What's wrong? She tried to answer, but the words wouldn't come. The wolves were still fighting, still tearing her apart from the inside. She was going to die here, she realized with sudden clarity. The fusion hadn't worked properly. Her body couldn't contain 2 wolves. She was going to burn out like a candle flame, and Delilah's secrets would die with her. "Get the healers," Joseph was shouting to someone. Then, directed at her, "Stay with me. Whatever this is, we'll fix it." Nicole's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with desperate strength. Through the physical contact, her doubled vision intensified, and suddenly she could see inside him, see his wolf, see the incredible power he kept tightly controlled beneath a civilized surface. But she could see something else, too. A connection, invisible but undeniable, running between his wolf and hers. Both hers. The mate bond snapped into place with the force of a physical blow. Nicole felt it lock around her heart, felt it extend to Joseph and settle there like it had always been waiting. The recognition was mutual and instantaneous. Joseph's eyes went wide, his pupils dilating as he felt it too. "That's not possible," he breathed. But even as he said it, Nicole could see the truth written across his face. He felt it. The bond between them, ancient and absolute and completely unexpected. And more than that, he was recognizing not just Nicole, but something in her that had belonged to Delilah. Through their merged consciousness, Nicole understood with horrifying clarity what she should have realized immediately. Joseph hadn't just known Delilah, he'd been in love with her. The grief she'd sensed in him wasn't just the loss of a pack member. It was the loss of someone he'd cared for deeply, but never had the chance to claim. Now, here was Nicole, carrying Delilah's wolf inside her own, and the mate bond was responding to both of them. The confusion and pain in Joseph's eyes was almost too much to bear. But before either of them could speak, before Nicole could try to explain what the elders had done, footsteps approached at a run. Elder Morwen's voice cut through the moment like a blade. "Alpha Joseph, step away from her." The old woman's tone carried absolute authority. "The girl is unstable. She underwent the bloodline rite and the fusion didn't take properly. She needs to be confined before she becomes a danger to the pack." Joseph's grip on Nicole tightened fractionally. Through the mate bond, Nicole could feel his wolf rising to the surface, protective and possessive in a way that sent warmth flooding through her despite the pain. "What are you talking about? What bloodline rite?" "It's pack business, Alpha," Morwen said smoothly. "Ancient protocols that predate even your bloodline. The girl's sister died carrying the ancient line. We had to preserve it." "By doing what, exactly?" Joseph's voice had dropped into a dangerous register that Nicole had never heard from him before. Elder Thaddeus stepped forward, flanked by two other elders. They formed a barrier between Joseph and Nicole felt the Alpha's reluctance to let her go, warring with his ingrained respect for pack hierarchy. "She drank her sister's blood," Thaddeus said. "The ritual was supposed to transfer Delilah's power to Nicole. But as you can see, something went wrong. The girl needs immediate medical intervention and probably sedation until we can determine—" "No!" Joseph's single word cut through Thaddeus's explanation like a knife. "No one is sedating anyone until I understand what's happening here." "Alpha, with respect, this is not your domain," Morwen said, and Nicole heard the subtle threat in her tone. "The bloodline rite falls under the purview of the Elder Council. It has been this way for centuries. We do not require your permission to—" "You required my permission the moment you involved a member of my pack in blood magic." Joseph's wolf was fully present in his voice now, making the air around him shimmer with barely contained power. "Nicole, can you speak? Can you tell me what happened?" Nicole tried. She truly did. But the wolves inside her were still fighting, still tearing her apart. And all that came out was a choked sound that might have been pain or might have been warning. Through her doubled vision, she saw Morwen's hand move in a subtle gesture. Saw 3 warriors emerge from the shadows, moving to flank Joseph from behind. They were going to attack him, going to remove him if he interfered further. The elders had prepared for this possibility. Nicole tried to shout a warning, but darkness was creeping in at the edges of her vision. The pain had reached a level beyond bearing. Her body was shutting down, unable to cope with the warring wolves any longer. She felt Joseph's arms around her, heard him shouting for healers again, felt the mate bond pulling taut between them like a rope in a storm. The last thing she saw before consciousness fled was Elder Morwen's face and the cold satisfaction written there. They'd won. They'd silenced Delilah, and now they were silencing Nicole too. And there was nothing Joseph could do about it, because he didn't understand the danger he was in. Delilah's memories surged forward in that final moment, showing Nicole flashes of what her sister had discovered. Secret meetings, ancient texts, a conspiracy that went back generations. The elders weren't protecting the pack. They were using it. Using the ancient line for something dark and terrible that Delilah hadn't lived long enough to fully uncover. And now Nicole carried those memories, that knowledge, locked inside a body that was tearing itself apart. The darkness took her then, pulling her down into unconsciousness. But just before she went under completely, she felt it. Joseph's wolf reaching out through the mate bond, wrapping around both of her wolves, trying to hold them together through sheer force of will. His voice followed her down into the dark, a promise and a command all at once. "I've got you. Stay with me. I won't let them take you." But Nicole was already gone, falling into a void where two wolves howled in harmony for the first time, their voices blending into a sound that shook the foundations of the pack house and sent every wolf in the compound to their knees. The ancient line had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same. When Nicole's eyes opened again, she wasn't in the healing ward. She was in a place she'd only seen from outside, Joseph's private chambers in the alpha wing of the pack house. Soft morning light filtered through tall windows, and the scent of cedar and wild sage filled the air. Her body ached like she'd been trampled by a herd of elk, but the tearing pain was gone. The two wolves inside her mind circled each other warily, but they weren't fighting anymore. They'd reached an understanding. Nicole sat up slowly, every muscle protesting. Someone had changed her clothes, put her in soft cotton that smelled like lavender. Her doubled vision was still there, but more controlled now, flickering on and off as she learned to manage it. The door opened and Joseph entered, carrying a tray with water and food. His eyes found hers immediately, and the mate bond flared to life between them, warm and insistent. But there was something else in his expression. Confusion, pain, questions he clearly wasn't sure he wanted answered. "You've been unconscious for 2 days," he said quietly, setting the tray on a nearby table. "The elders wanted to take you to their chambers. I refused. They're not happy about that." Nicole's throat was dry as dust. She reached for the water glass and drank deeply before trusting herself to speak. "Thank you," she managed, "for keeping me safe." "Safe," Joseph laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "I'm not sure that's possible anymore. Nicole, what did they do to you? What is the bloodline right?" She met his eyes and saw the moment he noticed the change in her, the way her gaze seemed to look through him and into him simultaneously, the way her scent had altered, carrying notes of something ancient and powerful that hadn't been there before. "They made me drink Delilah's blood," Nicole said simply. "Her wolf fused with mine. I have 2 wolves now, Joseph. 2 separate spirits sharing my body. And they gave me something else, too. Her memories. Her knowledge." Joseph went very still. Delilah's memories. She was investigating the elders. She discovered they were planning something involving the ancient line and the pack's future. Nicole paused, gathering courage for what came next. "She was going to tell you. But they killed her before she could. The temperature in the room dropped. Joseph's wolf rose to the surface, making his eyes flash gold. That's a serious accusation. I know, but it's true. I saw it in my doubled vision. Elder Thaddeus carries the guilt of it. And there's more. The elders forced me to undergo the bloodline rite because they need the ancient line preserved for whatever they're planning. But they didn't expect... Nicole gestured helplessly at herself. This. They didn't expect me to actually integrate both wolves. They thought I'd be easier to control than Delilah was. Joseph moved to the window, looking out over the compound. His shoulders were rigid with tension. Do you know what they're planning? Not yet. Delilah's memories are fragmented. I'm getting pieces, but not the full picture. I need time to sort through them, to understand what she learned. Nicole swallowed hard. Joseph, there's something else you need to know. He turned back to her, and the mate bond pulled taut between them again. Nicole saw recognition flash across his face. He knew what she was going to say. The mate bond, she said anyway, needing to speak it aloud. You feel it too, don't you? I feel something, Joseph admitted carefully. But Nicole, that's not... It shouldn't be possible. You're not... He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. I'm not Delilah, Nicole finished for him. But I carry part of her inside me now. Her wolf recognized you, and my wolf... She paused, feeling the truth of it settle into her bones. My wolf has always recognized you, Joseph. I've been attracted to you since I was 16 years old. I just never thought someone like you would ever notice someone like me. The confession hung in the air between them. Joseph's expression was unreadable, but Nicole could feel his emotions through the bond: confusion, desire, grief, and underneath it all, a deep well of loneliness that resonated with her own. This is complicated, he said finally. I know. The elders are already suspicious of why I'm keeping you here. If they find out about the mate bond, they'll use it against us, Nicole finished. They'll claim you're compromised, that you can't lead objectively anymore. Joseph nodded slowly. And they might be right. Nicole, I cared about Delilah. She was brilliant and brave and everything a high wolf should be. When she died, it felt like I'd lost something I never even had the chance to claim. And now here you are, carrying part of her inside you, and the mate bond is responding to both of you, and I don't know how to process this. Nicole's heart ached for him, and for herself, and for Delilah, whose death had set all of this in motion. I'm not asking you to process it right now, she said softly. I'm asking you to help me figure out what the elders are planning before anyone else gets hurt. Delilah trusted you. That's enough for me. Joseph studied her for a long moment, and Nicole saw the alpha in him warring with the man, the leader who had to protect the entire pack versus the person who wanted to protect this one woman who'd stumbled into his life carrying impossible complications and dangerous secrets. All right, he said finally. Tell me everything you remember, every fragment of Delilah's memories. We'll piece this together. For the next hour, Nicole shared everything she could pull from the jumbled memories her sister had left behind. Secret meetings in the old temple, ancient texts that spoke of a ritual requiring the ancient line, references to the awakening and the old gods and the price that must be paid. It was fragmentary and confusing, but patterns started to emerge. The elders weren't just preserving tradition, they were preparing for something that required enormous power and the sacrifice of someone carrying the ancient line. They planned to use Delilah, Nicole realized aloud. That's why they trained her, elevated her, gave her access to everything. They were preparing her to be sacrificed. Joseph's hands had curled into fists. But she found out, so they killed her before she could expose them. And then they forced me to take her power, because they still need someone with the ancient line for whatever they're planning. Nicole met his eyes. Joseph, I think they're going to try again, soon. There's urgency in how they're acting, like they're running out of time. The lunar eclipse, Joseph said suddenly. Next week. The first full lunar eclipse in a century. He pulled a book from his shelf, flipping through pages until he found what he was looking for. Ancient pack law states that major rituals can only be performed during celestial events of significance. If they're planning something that requires the ancient line and enormous power, they'd wait for the eclipse. 1 week. They had 1 week to figure out what the elders were planning and stop it. A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Joseph's expression hardened as he called, "Enter." A young messenger stepped inside, bowing quickly. "Alpha, the Elder Council requests an audience. They say it's urgent." "Tell them I'll meet with them in 1 hour," Joseph replied. "They said immediately, Alpha. They were quite insistent." Nicole felt Joseph's wolf bristle through the bond. 1 hour, he repeated, his tone brooking no argument. The messenger bowed again and fled. As soon as the door closed, Joseph turned back to Nicole. "They're making their move, trying to reassert control." He paused, studying her face. "Can you walk? Do you feel strong enough to stand?" Nicole pushed herself to her feet, testing her balance. The room swayed but held steady. "I'm okay. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that keeping you hidden isn't going to work. The elders know you're here. They'll demand I turn you over to them, claim that you need their supervision to stabilize your condition." Joseph's jaw tightened. "But if I present you to the pack first, if I make it public that you've successfully integrated both wolves and that you're under my direct protection as Alpha, it becomes much harder for them to make you disappear." Nicole's heart started to race. "You want to present me to the pack? Joseph, I'm nobody. I'm not trained for this. I don't know how to—" "You're not nobody anymore," Joseph interrupted gently. "You carry the ancient line. You have 2 wolves. And whether either of us wanted this or not, you're my mate. That makes you someone very important indeed." The word mate sent electricity down Nicole's spine. "You're acknowledging the bond? Publicly?" "I'm acknowledging that we're connected. How we define that connection can wait until we're not fighting for our lives against a conspiracy of elders." Joseph's expression softened slightly. "But yes, Nicole, I feel it. And I'm not going to pretend I don't, just because the timing is inconvenient." Before Nicole could respond, her doubled vision flickered to life unbidden. She saw Joseph as he was, standing in front of her, powerful and resolute, but she also saw something else. A shadow, moving through the compound toward the pack house. Multiple shadows. Warriors, approaching from different directions. "They're coming," Nicole said urgently. "The elders sent warriors. They're surrounding the pack house." Joseph moved to the window, his enhanced senses confirming what Nicole's doubled vision had shown her. "They're not waiting for the meeting. They're coming to take you by force." Nicole's 2 wolves rose in tandem, ready to fight. But she was one person against how many? 20 warriors? 30? She had power now, but she had no training, no experience using it. Joseph was strong, but even an alpha couldn't fight that many opponents alone. They were trapped. "There's a passage," Joseph said suddenly, moving to the back of his chamber and pressing his hand against what looked like solid wall. A section of stone swung inward, revealing darkness beyond. Old escape route from when the pack house was a fortress. It leads to the forest. If you go now— No, Nicole shook her head firmly. I'm not running. That's what they want. That's what they expect. The weak twin, always fleeing, always hiding. She felt both wolves inside her growl in agreement. I'm done being weak. Joseph's eyes flashed with something that might have been pride or might have been fear. Nicole, you don't understand what you're facing. These warriors are trained killers. The elders won't hesitate to— To what? Kill me? They need me alive. They need the ancient line for their ritual. Nicole felt certainty settling into her bones. And they're afraid of you, Joseph. Afraid of what you might do if you knew the truth. That's why they're making this move now, trying to separate us before we can piece together their plans. The sound of boots on stairs echoed through the pack house. They were out of time. Joseph's hand found Nicole's, his fingers interlacing with hers. Through the mate bond, she felt his wolf reaching out to both of hers, felt the connection between them solidify into something unbreakable. Whatever happens, he said quietly, we face it together. Nicole squeezed his hand, drawing strength from his presence. Together, she agreed. The door burst open. Elder Morwen stood framed in the doorway, flanked by a dozen warriors in combat formation. Her ancient eyes took in the scene. Joseph and Nicole standing side by side, hands joined, the space between them charged with power that shouldn't exist. Alpha Joseph, Morwen said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. Step away from the girl. She is unstable and dangerous. For the good of the pack, she must be brought under control. No, Joseph replied simply. Morwen's expression hardened. This is not a request, Alpha. Under ancient pack law, the Elder Council has authority over all matters concerning the ancient line. The girl belongs to us. Nicole belongs to herself, Joseph countered, and she's under my protection. If you want to take her, you'll have to go through me. The warriors shifted uneasily. Going against a direct order from the Elder Council was one thing. Going against the Alpha himself was another entirely. The conflict of authority was written on every face. You're making a mistake, Morwen said softly. One that will cost you everything you've built. The pack will not follow an Alpha who chooses a woman over their safety. The pack will follow an Alpha who protects them from threats, Joseph shot back, even when those threats come from within. He took a step forward, his wolf rising to the surface and filling the room with crushing dominance. Tell me, Elder Morwen, why did Delilah really die? What was she investigating that made you decide she was too dangerous to live? The silence that followed was deafening. Morwen's face showed no emotion, but Nicole's doubled vision revealed the truth, a flicker of fear quickly suppressed. The other elders had appeared in the doorway now, 5 of them, their expressions ranging from angry to calculating. Careful, Alpha, Elder Thaddeus warned. You're treading on ground you don't understand. There are forces at work older than your bloodline, older than this pack. What we do to preserve— To preserve what? Nicole asked, her voice carrying both of her wolves' power. Your own authority? Your secret plans? My sister died because of you, because she learned something you couldn't allow her to share. Your sister died because she was reckless, Morwen snapped. She went searching in places she didn't belong, asking questions she had no right to ask. She paid the price for her curiosity. You admit it then, Joseph said quietly. You admit you had her killed. The warriors stirred, uncertain now. This was more than they'd signed up for. An accusation of murder against the Elder Council, made by the Alpha himself, with a witness who carried the dead woman's memories. The implications were staggering. We admit nothing, Morwen said coldly. We did what was necessary to protect the pack from information that could have destroyed us all. And we will continue to do what's necessary. She gestured to the warriors. Take the girl. Subdue the Alpha if he resists. We'll sort out the political implications later. The warriors moved forward, but Nicole felt both her wolves surge to the surface. Power exploded from her body in a wave of pure force that knocked half the warriors backward. The doubled vision expanded, showing her not just what was, but what could be, showing her the paths each person would take in the next 5 seconds, the openings in their defenses, the weak points in their formation. She moved before consciously deciding to move, her body responding to instincts that came from both wolves working in perfect synchronization. 3 warriors went down before they even realized she'd attacked. Joseph was moving too, his alpha power combining with hers to create a wall of dominance that made every wolf in the room instinctively submit. Every wolf except the elders. "Enough!" Morwen's voice cracked like a whip, and suddenly Nicole found herself frozen, her body locked in place by some force she didn't understand. Joseph was frozen too, his expression showing shock and rage. "Did you think we were defenseless, child? Did you think centuries of accumulated power meant nothing?" The old woman moved forward, and Nicole saw her true form through the doubled vision. Something ancient and terrible wearing human skin. Something that had lived far longer than any wolf should be able to live. "The ancient line doesn't just grant power," Morwen said softly. "It grants knowledge. The knowledge of how things truly work. How the old gods made their bargain with the first wolves. How that bargain must be renewed every century, or the power fades and we become nothing more than ordinary animals." Nicole's mind raced, connecting pieces. "The lunar eclipse. You're going to renew the bargain. That's what this is about." "Very good. Your sister figured it out too, unfortunately for her." Morwen tilted her head, studying Nicole with clinical interest. "The bargain requires a sacrifice. Someone with the ancient line, offered willingly to the old gods at the moment the moon's light is swallowed by shadow. Delilah was supposed to fulfill that role. We'd been preparing her for it since she was a child. But she discovered the truth and refused, called us monsters, threatened to tell the Alpha and the pack." "So you killed her," Nicole whispered. "We preserved the pack," Morwen corrected, "as we have done for generations, as we will continue to do." Her eyes moved to Joseph, still frozen in place. "And if you continue to interfere, Alpha, we will remove you too and put someone more cooperative in your place." Through the mate bond, Nicole felt Joseph's fury, felt his wolf fighting against whatever force held him, straining to break free and protect his pack, protect her. But the elder's power was too strong, drawn from sources Nicole didn't understand. "You have a choice, child," Morwen said, returning her attention to Nicole. "Accept your role. Become the sacrifice willingly, as your sister should have. Give yourself to the old gods at the eclipse and ensure the pack's power continues for another century. Or refuse, and watch as we tear apart everything you care about. We'll start with your Alpha. Then we'll move through the pack systematically, removing anyone who might oppose us, until there's no one left who remembers what we were before." "That's not a choice," Nicole said, her voice shaking with anger and fear. "That's a threat." "It's reality," Morwen replied. "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. You'll come to understand that in time. Or you won't, and you'll die screaming like your sister did." Nicole's doubled vision showed her the truth of that statement, showed her Delilah's final moments, the elders standing over her broken body, Thaddeus's knife still dripping with blood. The images seared themselves into her consciousness, fuel for a rage that came from both wolves simultaneously. Power built inside her like a storm preparing to break. She could feel it pushing against the force that held her frozen, could feel cracks forming in the elders' control. They were strong, but they'd never faced two wolves in one body before, had never faced what the ancient line became when it fused with itself. "You're afraid," Nicole said suddenly, the realization hitting her with crystal clarity. "That's why you're doing this now, why you couldn't wait. You're afraid of what I might become if given time to understand my power. Afraid that two wolves might be stronger than even the old god's bargain." Morwen's face remained impassive, but Nicole saw the truth beneath, saw the fear the old woman carried. The elders had performed the bloodline rite, expecting Nicole to either die or become weak enough to control. They hadn't expected her to succeed, hadn't expected the fusion to create something entirely new. "It doesn't matter what you might become," Morwen said flatly. "You'll never get the chance to find out. The eclipse is in 7 days. Between now and then, you'll remain in our custody, contained, controlled, and when the time comes, you'll serve the pack as you were always meant to." The paralysis shattered. Nicole didn't know how she did it. One moment she was frozen, the next both wolves were roaring in unison, and the force holding her simply ceased to exist. She felt Joseph break free at the same moment, felt his shock and triumph through the bond. But before either of them could move, before Nicole could even process what had happened, the floor beneath her feet erupted with light. Ancient symbols blazed to life, forming a circle around her position. She tried to step out of it, but the light formed walls, a cage of pure energy that burned when she touched it. "A precaution," Morwen said, though her composure had cracked slightly. "We suspected you might be stronger than anticipated. This circle was prepared in advance, powered by the blood of your ancestors. You can't break it, not even with two wolves." Nicole slammed her fist against the barrier and felt the energy bite into her skin. Morwen was right. The cage held firm. Joseph was moving now, charging toward the elders with murder in his eyes. But 6 warriors intercepted him, and even an alpha couldn't fight that many at once. Nicole watched helplessly as they forced him back, as Thaddeus produced a syringe filled with silver lace sedative. "No!" Nicole screamed, but it was too late. The needle found Joseph's neck and he went down hard, his eyes locking with hers even as consciousness fled. "Sleep well, Alpha," Morwen said softly. "When you wake, this will all be over. The girl will have accepted her fate, the pack will be secure, and you'll continue to lead them, never knowing how close you came to destroying everything." Through the mate bond, Nicole felt Joseph's presence fade into unconsciousness, felt the connection between them stretch but not break. He was still alive, still fighting even in sleep. She would get back to him. She had to. The elders were moving now, forming a circle around her cage. They began to chant in a language Nicole didn't recognize, and she felt the cage start to constrict. They were preparing to transport her somewhere she wouldn't be found before the eclipse. Nicole's 2 wolves howled in harmony, and for just a moment, her doubled vision showed her something impossible. Showed her a future where she broke free, where she and Joseph stood together against the elders, where the old god's bargain was shattered and the pack became something new, something better. But that future was slipping away with every second. The cage compressed further, and the world started to fade into white light. Nicole's last thought before the teleportation took her was a promise, sent through the mate bond to Joseph's sleeping mind. "I will fight. I will survive. And I will come back to you." Then the light swallowed her whole, and she was gone. Did you like this story? What are your thoughts? And which moment grabbed you the most? Part 2 is now available. Just check the description below or click the suggested video to dive into the next chapter. Also, Tell us which state you are watching from so we can give you a shout out in the next videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching, and see you in part 2.